Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Go Big or Go Home. I am the gambling old man, Troy, joined by the generous Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter, but I also call him the Youngster. Do you like that name, Generous? I figured I'd call you Generous because you're always generous with your time. Like, you work a part-time job, but you give them like 50 hours a week. It's like amazing how the requirements for part-time work in Florida. It's like 50 hours. I thought it was always like 20 hours part-time. But I guess things in Florida are different. I'm a gambling man today, Kevin, because I told you I left my route today in Pittsburgh knowing I was low on gas, got onto the parkway, stuck in traffic, gas light starts beeping at me. Still had about 12 miles to go in traffic till I got to the next gas station. So I gambled. With my gas today. I won because I got to the gas station. And it's even a winner chicken dinner for me because I got a milkshake before the show. How do you like that?
I've got a water, and half my tank is full. So not too much excitement there, but certainly more excitement for you. So hats off to that. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself, too, that I didn't get stuck on the parkway running out of gas. That would have been terrible. But, you know, I've tested my car, and I know this is a sports show, but it's a funny little story. I actually test my car and run it to the brink before I run out of gas. Like, when I first got the car, I put a gas can in the trunk, let it go to the gas light coming on to see how far I could not run completely out, but I know I can get 51 miles at least, and maybe a mile or two more before I run out of gas. So, I mean, the car has a pretty good reserve tank, I guess, or I guess the light comes on early. So that's what I got going on. But a great show today. This is Big Ten basketball time. NBA draft in depth last week. We talked about it. Only 4 players, Kevin. Only 4 players in the Big Ten selected. Now, there's a bunch that are going to be playing summer ball with, well, I guess you can't call them the big boys because they're not really the big boys of the NBA. But some players selected to play in the summer league. But the summer league, to me, is equivalent of minor league baseball, Kevin. And having a chance to come out of summer league, get onto a roster full-time, very hard to do. Because you're competing against the draft pick guys. You're competing against the veterans. You're competing against the free agents that are out there. That is a tough road to the NBA if you're not drafted, playing in the summer league. That is just not what I would call a good path to keep your NBA career alive. So let's move into it. 4 players. I will admit this before I turn it back over to you. Totally wrong. Swanigan, totally wrong. I didn't think he'd be able to get up into the first round. I will be the first to admit I'm wrong. I'll be the first to admit maybe this guy's agent knew something we didn't know. I was cutting down agents last week. Good job, Mr. Swanigan's agent. You got him all the way into the first round. I applaud you. That's all I got, youngster.
Yeah, I guess I'm with you. I mean, I was wrong as well, and I was talking about how great Draft Express was a week ago, saying, you know, not that they're never wrong. I mean, everyone who makes a mock draft, you're obviously going to get things wrong. Certain guys will jump a little bit. Certain guys will fall back a little bit. No one, you know, ranked in the top 5 is going to fall to 15 in an NBA draft. Like the NFL, it's kind of a little different. But so Swanigan for Draft Express, I think he was 39th a week ago. That's where they had him mocked, and then he went 26th in the first round. So obviously a big leap there. They were wrong. I fed into it and thought that he was going to be a second-round pick. And if that's the case, I mean, all 4 of these guys are sophomores from the Big Ten that got picked. And 3 of them went in the first round. And then Thomas Bryant, the center from Indiana, got picked 42nd by the Jazz. He got traded to the Lakers. Well, I guess I want to at least, you know, talk a minute about these fits for these guys in their teams. Not that we have to go obviously in depth and break down if, they're going to get the second most amount of playing time at their position or, any of that stuff. But yeah, for Swanigan to start there, I mean, I guess it's congratulations to being a first-round pick and getting a guaranteed contract and money and all that. Obviously, some people didn't think he was going to be a first-round pick. We talked about it a week ago that if this draft takes place 5-10 years ago, Swanigan's a lottery pick. If you just watch him play in college this past year, and you watch him, I forgot how many points he averaged. I think it was 12 rebounds. I think it was either 16 and 12 or 18 and 12, recorded the most double-doubles in Big Ten regular season history in a single season this past year. I mean, he's just a force on the glass, and he can step out from three. It's like 40% from three, and yet he get, mocked a lot about being a second-round pick, early second-round pick, and obviously Trailblazers took him number 26. So he gets into the first round. Again, congrats on getting that guaranteed first-round, money and contract and whatnot. But it's just it's incredible. This draft, it's one thing to be the 26th pick in this draft because next year, if you just automatically replace Caleb Swanigan and throw him in next year's draft, he's probably picked 16th. That's how loaded this class is. We talked about that already. But so, like you said, Troy, I mean, we don't know what agents are guaranteed. Some teams say, hey, we know we're picking 28th in the draft. And if you're still there, we think you're the 15th best player. So unless someone really falls, we're absolutely going to take you. Or, hey, we think you're the 9th best player, and we're picking 26th. We're the Trailblazers. We absolutely want you, Caleb Swanigan. And so if, agents, players can get guarantees from teams and whatnot, and as long as those deals are kept, which they basically almost always are, there's never really a story of, oh my God, my little prospect here that he signed with me, and I'm the agent, and this team, promised that they would pick us 11th, but they didn't. Those stories never really come out. Typically, it's more toward the back end, although, if a team's picking 5th and they think you're the second best player in the draft and they fall to 5, then you can get that guarantee too. But I'm sure Portland probably had this figured out that, hey, if Swanigan's there at 26, we're taking him. And they did. And so, again, congratulations to him. It's just interesting to see. I guess it was interesting to see Swanigan mocked early in the second round, gets picked in the first. DJ Wilson got picked in the first round. He was the first Big Ten player taken at 17. OJ Anunoby from Indiana got taken second from the Big Ten at number 23. And then I already mentioned Thomas Bryant at 42. But so Wilson and Anunoby were basically supposed to be first-round picks according to everyone. Swanigan probably second round. Made it to the first. Thomas Bryant was kind of early second, late first. Ended up in the middle of the second. So it was interesting to see him drop. But, yeah, basically my point and my take from the Swanigan situation was nobody mocking ever gets it right, and especially toward the end of the first round. Players are guaranteed a lot of the time from teams, GMs, scouts, whoever's basically running that organization, thinking that prospect is really good, and if they fall all the way down to whatever pick they have, they'll get a promise, and that's, I'm assuming, what happened there with Portland and Swanigan.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened as far as promises and talking goes. I mean, I think it's a pretty good fit for him, actually. When you look at what Portland has, they do need somebody that can go in and be physical on the boards. You look, they've got Lilliard, they've got McCollum, they've got guys that can score. I'm not sure how much they're going to ask him to actually score, Kevin. They may have looked at him for his tenacity to get rebounds. And if he can, we've talked about this when we talk basketball, if you can extend the possession by getting an offensive rebound, tires out the defense. If you can end the other team with a one-and-done shot, then you guys can move into transition. I like the fit. I think it was a decent pick, a decent situation. He may actually get some playing time as a rookie because of Portland's lack, in my mind, of guys that can go in and crash the board. So he'll have a chance to compete immediately, I think, Kevin, and get some decent playing time as a rookie. I just don't think they're going to ask him to carry a load scoring like they did at Purdue. I think he's going to be used more in this system as that guy that's going to try to crash the boards, get offensive rebounds, get those, put back points, and then be a guy on the defensive end that can crash and be physical and try to use his length to get rebounds so that he can get the ball to McCollum and Lillard. But I like the pick by Portland. I don't even think it's a reach, Kevin. I know when he was mocked in the second round, it is what it is, right? He's a good player. So I don't think it's a reach. People will say, wow, that's a big jump. Is he a first-round talent to me? Based on what he did in college, yes. He has some of those intangibles. I like the kid. I like watching him play. We'll see how he does in the NBA. He may have to put on, he lost a lot of weight. He may just have to beef that up to get really physical because he's not a man amongst boys now. He's a man playing against other men, and we'll see how he handles himself. He's not just going to be able to push himself around. He's going to have to get some technique down. He's going to have to learn the NBA game. But I'm okay with this pick, Kevin, and I think Portland, if there was a team that he needed to go to be able to get an opportunity to play, I think Portland's the place. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think also with the Big Ten, or not the Big Ten, the NBA, if you're in the top 5, you're hoping to get, the next, not necessarily LeBron, but a superstar, basically, a KD, the next Steph, a Harden, a Westbrook, some type of guy that just completely takes your franchise to another level and you can completely build around. But even in the top 5, if you're picking 4 some years, it's like, wow, the top 2 players are projected to be superstars, and yet, we're number 4. Hopefully we get an all-star level player, but even that's not really guaranteed. There's always a bust on the top 5 every single year. So picking all the way down at 26, and Portland, I think they had an earlier pick. I think they had the 20th pick. I know that much. And they took Harry Giles, and then they traded him. So they wanted to get out of number 20. They picked 26, and you take Swanigan with your first pick. But again, it's the NBA, and the 26th pick overall, you're not necessarily hoping they just make the roster. But if you get a key guy coming off the bench, like I think Swanigan will be, especially now, his rookie year, I think that if you get a guy who can absolutely get after the boards and a guy who can actually step out from 3 and, day one, I think at number 26 to get arguably the best rebounder in college basketball and a big guy who can step out and hit 40% from 3 like he did, I'm sure he won't walk into the NBA and hit 40% because obviously it's a little more difficult in the NBA, but he's obviously a willing three-point shooter. If you hit over 40% of your threes in college, you can obviously do it. So I love the pick. I think he's absolutely worth a number 26 pick. Again, I think that if my favorite team, the Celtics, were picking 26 and they got a guy who I think can contribute off the bench, that's excellent. It's a first-round pick. So, the NFL, if you're a first-round pick and you're, a backup for your career and you're just a good backup, that's terrible. But in the NBA, picking down at 26, every single team, Golden State, Cleveland, they showed it in the finals that your bench can't be terrible. Granted, your bench is only going to play probably, 5-6 minutes a game in the finals if you get there, but you can't just absolutely be terrible. And that's what Cleveland's bench was this past season. Anytime LeBron went off the floor, they collapsed. It would be a 10-0 run in a minute or 12-0 run or 12-2 or 6-0 run in 40 seconds. And it's just like, oh, my God, we need Kyrie and Love and LeBron, at least LeBron out there. We can't go to our backups because they just can't compete. They lose us the game, literally. So I think it was up until Game 5, the first 4 games of the series when Cleveland was down 3-1, Cleveland with LeBron James on the court outscored Golden State throughout the first 4 games of the series. And yet Golden State won 4-1, and everyone thinks Golden State obliterated Cleveland, and it was, what it was, and Golden State's obviously the best team. I think there were a lot of close games, and that was because of LeBron, but also the bench for Golden State was just such a bigger factor than I thought it was. I was completely wrong on that. I thought Cleveland had the better bench going into the finals. But so my point here is every single team, whether you're Golden State, Cleveland, or whoever else, you need at least a decent bench, and I think Swanigan will absolutely provide that. Like you said, Troy, he lost a bunch of weight. This is why he went down to 26, was because, if you're a National Player of the Year candidate and you're a sophomore, it's not as though you're old. So why did he fall to 26? It's because he lost all this weight. He's a 6'9" power forward. He's not this monstrous, long, NBA body. He's just kind of a plodding 6'9" guy who lost a bunch of weight, isn't in great shape. He'll never be quick. So it's different when you're taking a 6'11" power forward who can run up and down the floor and be a rim protector. It's another thing to be Swanigan and just get a bunch of rebounds because you're technically sound at it. And like you said perfectly also, Troy, was that he just kind of was a man among boys in college, and not just in the Big Ten, but, NCAA tournament, non-conference games to start the year. He would get double-digit rebounds against anyone because he was just bigger and stronger and obviously technically sound, but he was just bigger than everyone else, realistically. That's not going to be the case in the NBA. He'll need to adjust. But overall, like you said, again, Lillard, McCollum in the backcourt, they're going to do your scoring. Alan Crabb can score. Evan Turner's, I don't want to talk about Evan Turner as a Celtics fan, but Mo Harkless, Myers Leonard, the center, he can also step out and hit threes. Portland has no problem scoring. They need to get rebounds. Festus Ezeli's on a non-guaranteed contract in this upcoming year, so they need a guy who can crash the boards. Swanigan can do that. I'm certainly a fan of the pick. But unless there's anything else you have to add, Troy, about Swanigan, can get in DJ Wilson going to the Bucks.
Yeah, well, I want to just throw this out here, and I know we'll probably talk about it maybe on our Saturday show that we do on WFSN. You brought up the Cavaliers, and we talked about them not getting back into this draft by buying back into the second round. When I look at teams, there are certain teams that Swanigan would have to be on to have an NBA career in my mind. He needs to have that team that needs what you said, the board crasher. I thought Cleveland would have been a great place for him too. However, Cleveland didn't have a pick. But I wonder, and it makes me think when you bring it up, was Cleveland kind of hoping maybe that he was available around that 35, 36? And if he was, would they have gotten back into the draft? I don't know. But you think about it, Kevin. You add Swanigan's presence to that Cleveland Cavalier team, I think it makes a difference. I think that's one thing that Cleveland could really use is another guy that's in there that's scrappy, that is not going to be counted on to score all the time, but a guy that can get rebounds, continue possessions. Tristan Thompson did it inconsistently. And, what can you expect from Swanigan in his first year? Who knows? But I thought Cleveland would have been a really nice fit also as another one of those teams for Swanigan. Let you comment real quickly. Then we'll get into the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks, the team that I have supported since I was yay big, and now I'm really old, and I've supported them every year. I love my Bucks.
It's good to hear because there's not a lot of dedicated Bucks fans out there through the terrible times they had. Obviously, they've had good times too, but certainly as of late, not so great. But anyway, like you said, with Swanigan and Cleveland, and potentially if he moves back or gets drafted or is available, I should say, in the second round, it's a good point you pick up because those are non-guaranteed contracts, and you can make the pick. You can stash them overseas. You can send them, now it's called the G League, the Gatorade League, because it's sponsored by Gatorade. So it's not technically the D League anymore, even though I still call it the D League. But so he can go into, I guess, the quote-unquote minors. I'll start calling it the G League just to get myself used to it. But like you said, if you can get into the second round, if you're a top-tier team and pick up a guy who you think can help you, that's a possibility. And especially in this year's draft with how loaded it was, there were teams that went into the second round and bought picks from other teams and made their selections. And the first pick in the second round was traded. the 5th pick in the second round was traded. Also, which I wanted to comment on, I don't think I did it on this show. I think it was the other show we do. The 8th pick in the second round, Chicago had it, and Golden State bought that pick for over $3 million and got Jordan Bell, a 6'9", big, like Swanigan, except Jordan Bell is one of those guys who gets up and down the court and can be a rim protector. He's only 6'9", but that's what he does. He's a good shot blocker. He's a good defender. He's a versatile defender. He's kind of like Draymond Green in a way. He can't shoot at all, so he's not going to be Draymond Green. He's not the passer Draymond Green is, but he brings that tenacity. He can get boards. He can defend probably positions 2 through 5 realistically. He's not going to guard point guards, but he's a versatile defender, and he's a imposing presence defensively and can help you just make basically any switch that you need to. And if there's a need that Golden State has, it's on the interior. It's getting rebounds. It's being a better defender. That's what Jordan Bell is. That's why they paid the Chicago Bulls over $3 million to select him in the second round, the 38th pick overall. So just because you're the Cavs, just because you're the Warriors, it's not as though I just talked about how the number 26 pick, you're hoping to get a guy that eventually makes a contribution. But still, especially in this draft, like I said, even at number 38, pick number 39 I love by Philly getting Juwan Evans. That's a different story. But the Warriors trading back into the draft and getting a guy they think can help his rookie year, it speaks volumes to this draft. And to pay over $3 million, again, that's not chump change to get back in the draft. I don't know if that's because the salary cap went up, so it just so happened to be that, a second-round pick would cost teams $3 million if they wanted to trade into it. Or I don't know if that's because that's how valuable these second-round picks were, especially in the early part of the second round, because of how loaded the draft was. But, yeah, I think it's an interesting point, Troy, that maybe Cleveland, especially with how tight they are for money, paying all their stars, and overpaying guys like Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, they're tight on money, and so they don't want to have a guaranteed contract. And if Swanigan was there in the second round, I'm with you. It would have been a perfect pick. But that being said, we can transition to DJ Wilson. You're a Bucks guy. I'll get your immediate thoughts on it.
I like the pick. Like I said, I will admit, some Buck fans will hide in the closet and only cheer when they're doing well. I think, I've been critical of Jason Kidd. I wasn't on the Kidd bandwagon. I think at that time we were doing the Red Light Sports Ramble. I think we had you on the show. I know we had a couple of people that chimed in about that. I wasn't sold on Jason Kidd, and I don't know if I'm still really sold on Jason Kidd right now, Kevin. As a Bucks fan, I need a coach that can develop these young guys. They've got a good young nucleus of players. I really like the nucleus, and I like this addition of Wilson. I think they're going to get a good player that's going to be able to come in. Pick 17, again, it's like playing the lottery. You don't know what you're going to get. Can you adjust to the NBA? Again, based on college performance, based on what I've seen, and especially following the Big Ten, Wilson has a pedigree. I mean, he has some tools. He has some things that look good. But again, Kevin, in my mind, these players that got drafted sometimes are playing against competition that's not the same as the NBA. Well, definitely not the same as the NBA. Now you got to go in night after night after night and play against guys that are just as good as you are. And there were times on the court when you could tell he was better than the guy that he was playing against, and he made some things look easy. Nothing's going to come easy, especially on the Bucks. This is a team that they did make the playoffs. We talked about them. They gave Toronto a little scare. They're still more than a few pieces away. But it's nice to see them getting back to being a little bit competitive, and I say it that way because when I look at that, we talked about this, I believe it was on our other show, that right now, what is your goal? You're not going to be better than the Celtics. You're not going to be better than the Cavaliers. So what is your goal? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be the best of the rest? And I think that's kind of where the Bucks are going, Kevin. I'm not saying that we should be satisfied as fans with that, but we've got to be real. Got to be realistic. The Bucks are not going to be better than the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're not going to be better than your Boston Celtics. So, as a fan, my realistic expectation is maybe they can be a 4 seed and be on the cusp of just underneath them and keep building and developing players. Thus, back to my comment that I'm not 100% sold on Jason Kidd because I don't think he's a developer. I think he's a decent coach, but I don't think he's a guy that develops players. And when you look at that roster, it's a young roster with guys that need to develop an NBA game. I think Kidd is more an X and O's guy, which is fine. But I'd like to see a coach in there, Kevin, even with the success the Kids had getting to the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. I hear the arguments all the time. I want a coach that's going to develop. I could care less right now, Kevin, if the Bucks make the playoffs. Here's the reason. Celtics, Cavaliers. Celtics, Cavaliers, Raptors. Celtics, Cavaliers, Raptors, Wizards. The Bucks are not in that class yet. So making the playoffs, to me, allows them to get a middle of the first-round pick and the guy that is not going to be a superstar but needs to be developed. And if you're going to do that, if that's where you're going to strive to be, you need a coach that's going to develop players. I'll say it for a third time. I don't think that's Jason Kidd. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm not 100% sold on Kidd either. I'm not a Milwaukee Bucks fan, but I like the team, and to me, just in general, random fact about me in sports and teams I like, I have my teams that I like. I have my Tennessee Titans. I have my Boston Celtics. I have my Duke Blue Devils. Marquette, college basketball, I always cheer for. But there are teams, in any given year or couple of years, if I like a young core, or in college, if it's just usually lasts a season, like last year, we talked about this on the show, that I loved Purdue throughout this past season in college basketball. They were my team that I thought was the best team in the Big Ten, and I thought they were the best team. And so they were just a fun watch to me. I think Michigan State, I think that's not going out on a limb at all, but Michigan State this upcoming year in Big Ten basketball, they're my favorite and basically everyone's favorite to win the Big Ten and do some things in March. But so this Bucks team over the last 3-4 years, I've taken notice to, partly because a couple of my better friends are Milwaukee Bucks fans, but also, so I hear about them, period, just in general, and seeing Giannis more often than, any other casual fan out there in the NBA, not that I'm a casual fan, but a person who is not an immediate fan of the Bucks doesn't know as much about Giannis, just like I don't know as much about Rudy Gobert or as a, diehard Utah Jazz fan. But so I've seen guys like Giannis and Chris Middleton and Thon Maker and Malcolm Brogdon, who won Rookie of the Year last night, and Jabari, who has, gone through his injuries. I've seen these guys kind of develop, and, Giannis is 22 and Middleton's 25. And Brogdon's 24. It's kind of funny because Brogdon was a rookie last year. Thon Maker was a rookie last year. Brogdon's 24. Thon Maker's 20. So there's certainly something to be said for getting a seasoned guy who's ready to play. There's a reason why Malcolm Brogdon fell to where he fell a year ago. It's because of his age. It's because the upside may not be as high as a guy who gets taken higher than him. That's why the NBA draft works the way it does. It's not like the NFL where, 1, maybe 2 years of separating guys. In the NBA, it can be 4. So you're getting a seasoned product like Brogdon was. He showed it. That's why he won Rookie of the Year. Thon Maker, to me, has more upside. But so we're talking about DJ Wilson here in general, and I think that he's a, I guess, good fit for this team. To me, there's nothing wrong with taking a 6'10" athletic big who can shoot the three and defend, any interior position and can probably guard multiple small forwards in the league. I think he's a good player. Obviously, that's why he got picked 17th overall. I think he's an intriguing prospect. I like him in general. Just with the Bucks, I think that if they needed something, it was probably a big guy. And so DJ Wilson fits that need. I just think you want more of a board getter, more of a Swanigan type for the Bucks. I think Thon Maker's kind of a stretch big, obviously a rim protecting big at his length. I'm not sure if he's 6'11" or 7 foot technically, but regardless, he's as long as you can imagine and showed that this past year. I think he's going to be an excellent player going forward. But I think, Wilson with Maker, maybe that's a really awesome front line going forward. I just thought the Bucks probably would want a more Tristan Thompson, Caleb Swanigan, just get your boards and, just play tough defense for us, and that's that. But DJ Wilson obviously has probably a higher upside than Swanigan because of how athletic he is. He can also shoot the three. He can defend multiple positions that Swanigan can't. So there's a reason why guys go where they do. But like you said, Troy, it's still a lottery. You don't know what you're getting. These kids are, 18, 19, 20 years old for the most part. So they're not seasoned guys like Brogdon. You don't typically pick a bunch of seniors. I think 9 of the first 10 picks in the draft were all freshmen, and then there was an international guy. But so, point being, I think I like the pick of Wilson. I think he's an intriguing prospect. It'll be interesting to see where he fits in with the Bucks. It'll be interesting to see not just his rookie year, but especially years 3, 4, 5. Once Giannis gets into his prime, Middleton, Jabari, if he can stay healthy. Thon, I think, is going to be a great player. I think Brogdon's going to be just really solid. So this Bucks team, I think there's something to be said for being that next tier behind Cleveland and Boston, because Boston has a few older guys, and then they've got a bunch of younger guys, and Cleveland just has a bunch of older guys for the most part. Outside of Kyrie, Love is, I would say, middle-aged in terms of the NBA terms, but who knows what's going on with Cleveland. Some people think LeBron's leaving after next year. If they don't make improvements and Dan Gilbert doesn't spend more money, which it's hard to see him spending more money when you're already $30 million over the cap and paying $50 million each year in luxury taxes. So I don't blame Dan Gilbert in that sense, but if LeBron doesn't get what he wants, he'll move on. There's absolutely something to be said with the LeBron situation. That's a topic for a different day. I don't even know if it's on this show, not to plug our other show, but again, check us out on Twitter, at TroyRobert967, at Kid Cunning, to check out our other show that streams live on Saturdays. We always tweet out the link, but that's just about general stuff. We can talk about LeBron and Cleveland and who's, if he's going to leave and stuff like that. But to DJ Wilson and the Bucks, I think the Bucks are a young team. They're getting a nice young player. It'd be interesting to see where he fits with Thon Maker, who's kind of the same mold, in my opinion.
It'll be interesting. You brought up a lot of good names, and and you made the hair on my arm stand up when you said Jabari Parker. Got to stay healthy. I'll tell you what, before his injury, Kevin, he was having a hell of a year. He was really, I thought, in my mind, thriving, and that's all people will say. Well, kids. I don't think kids developing. I think it's Jabari Parker maturing into the NBA and being the player that he could be. And that's why I said, Kevin, I'm okay if the Bucks don't make the playoffs and have a chance in the lottery, because they do have a great core, but they need another player. Then they need another playmaker in there somewhere. Giannis is great. I mean, I hope he can stay in Milwaukee. I hope they do enough around him that makes him want to stay. Unfortunately, I think Giannis may be limited in Milwaukee, and I think he may move on at some point. But I'm going to enjoy him as a Buck as long as I can. Let's move on to the next Big Ten player, Kevin. I actually think this is another good fit. And we had said this on the other show. It's kind of a boring draft in the sense that all these picks made sense. They made sense. There was no jaw-dropping, oh, my God, why'd you do this, outside of a trade that we're not going to talk about, because it really doesn't relate to the Big Ten. But Anunoby from Indiana to Toronto. Toronto's got some scoring. They have Lowry, they have DeRozan. Getting this guy at 23, he may have fallen a bit in the draft, Kevin, due to the injury, and nobody knows how you come back from injury. This is one guy that may have been projected higher. Had he completed the whole season, he may have been one of those guys that were in the lottery or near the lottery. And when we talk about guys coming out early, okay, this whole plan was one and done, right? after an injury like that, though, Kevin, we didn't talk about this, and I don't even think I've shared this with you. Okay, you did get picked in the first round. You did get picked. You're going to get a guaranteed contract going to Toronto with your athleticism, with your skill set. Maybe you're going to see some playing time on a very good team. However, after an injury, my thought here for this young fellow, maybe you should have went back to Indiana for a year, rehab the knee, show the scouts, hey, it's 100%, play a full college year. I think he really could have improved his draft stock, Kevin. I think next year, if he comes out in less of a stock draft, he could have been a top 10 pick next year had he come back strong from that knee injury. I mean, he's going right to the NBA. Good for him. You can argue with me, and I can't disagree. He got his guaranteed contract, blah, blah, blah. But I also sometimes look at what's real in the world and what would have been a logical choice for this young man. Come back, rehab the knee, around that medical profession, come back, play a little bit. Maybe you get picked in the top 10, you know. This guy's got all the skill in the world, Kevin. I like the pick to Toronto. I think Toronto got a good guy, a good pick. I think he's going to have a chance in Toronto to play.
Yeah, I could go on about Anunoby for a while, and I won't because we're already pushing close to 40 minutes. But my thing with this, and you brought it up, was, you know, why not come back? Why not play a full season? Why not show that you're a top 10 potential pick who can guard, you know, positions probably 2 through most 5 in the NBA? He's 6'8", he's long. He wants to be an elite defender in the NBA. That's like his goal. He can score. You know, you're getting a great wing defender right now if you're Toronto. And the thing about Toronto, too, is Kyle Lowry declined his player option a month ago. So Lowry's a free agent. He's probably leaving. DeRozan's under contract for 3 more years. But if this team, you know, falls, I think they're going to take a huge fall. I think Lowry's gone. I think this team does fall to 6, 7, 8 in the East, realistically. I think they're pretty good, but without a point guard, I mean, even with Lowry, they struggled, and they showed it when Lowry was hurt these past couple of years during little different stints. And going into the postseason, he was hurt. He wasn't 100%. This past year, Toronto, you know, had a couple struggle games against Milwaukee. I think, realistically, Milwaukee's going to be better than Toronto. Next year, I think Toronto falls a little bit. Washington will, you know, surely stay up there with Wall and Beal, but losing Lowry is going to hurt. But back to Anunoby. What's interesting about him and his situation is, like you said perfectly, come back a year, prove you're a top 10 pick in a less loaded draft class. My thing is, did he come out because he is a little unsure of his knee, and he didn't want to show teams and scouts like, hey, I'm still not 100%. You know, I'm never going to be arguably the player that I was. You know, probably right now he's still not 100%. I'm sure he's not. But so it's going to take him into his rookie year to actually feel close to 100%. I mean, after most knee injuries, it takes into that second year to really feel like you're back. So it's, you know, it'll be interesting to see how much he plays this year. I'm sure it won't be a ton. I think he'll get valuable bench minutes, and, you know, as long as your knee feels good, we'll throw you out there. But to me, Toronto and getting this Anunoby kid, I question, I guess, his thinking in, hey, I don't know about my knee, and if I hurt my knee again this upcoming year at Indiana, now I'm screwed. So if I know I'm going to be a first-round pick and close to a lottery pick, and, you know, I absolutely know that I'm getting this money, and, you know, no matter what happens with my knee, you know, to go through a knee, it's one thing if you're Caleb Swanigan and you say, oh, well, I guess I could get injured, so then my draft stock could plummet. Anunoby just came off a huge injury, you know, a knee injury, a scary injury. So it's right on the forefront of his mind, like, oh, my God, I could get injured again, and, you know, my basketball career could be done. So to come off an injury and still be projected automatic first-round pick, I don't blame him whatsoever. It'll be interesting to see what Toronto does going forward. I think they lose Lowry. Like I said, him declining his player option, I don't think bodes well. It was only for $12 million, so he could re-sign. It just, by all indications and reports, it sounds like he wants out. So it'll be interesting to see if Anunoby kind of steps in as a wing. He's not going to be a point guard and replace Lowry, but I like Anunoby going forward. I just question his thoughts on his knee and why he didn't come back because, like you said, Troy, the talent is all there, and absolutely, if he's 100% next year in college basketball, he's a dominant defender automatically, and NBA scouts would easily see that. They saw it while he was healthy this past year, so to see another year of it, he would be a top 10 pick next year. There's almost no doubt in my mind, but I'm sure there are question marks from him, what he's thinking with his knee, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with that knee. I think that's the story with him going forward.
Yeah, you see it all the time, Kevin. These guys get hurt in college. They go to the NBA, and then they can never get it right. Or they get to the NBA, and unfortunately, I got to bring up the name that you did, Jabari Parker. You get an injury, and then you just – not that he's injury-prone. He's just getting injured. And sometimes you can't shake the injury bugaboo. And I can understand it. Like you said, I'm not going to fault this guy for taking the money and running with it. But, you know, at some point, I mean, I think back. I've had a major knee injury, Kevin. I think you knew that. Total knee reconstruction. And I wanted to go play. I wasn't playing at a professional level, but playing at a men's amateur state level team, which is a competitive men's team. I wanted to prove I could go back and play, and it did. It really took me into that second year getting the brace off of my knee when I really didn't question anything about the stability of it. Even with a brace, even after rehab, when I stepped on the field for the first time and for that half of that first season, because I got back halfway through, not a game went by where I wasn't worried about that knee again. I was not sold on the knee. And I was the guy. It was my knee. So it does take time for those knee injuries, even with the marvels of modern medicine and the way that they can repair ligaments and all of the tendons and things inside of that knee. It's still, part of it is mental, Kevin. Having the trust in your own body to know that it's okay. But it took me a while. It took me, like you said, into year 2 or that second season after the surgery for me to not worry and just go back and play and feel 100%. So there is another Bryant in Los Angeles, Kevin, and no, it's not Kobe. Kobe's not coming out of retirement. But it's Anunoby's teammate, Thomas Bryant, going to the Lakers. And it's going to be a segue into something crazy that you talked about. Thomas Bryant, though, very good player for Indiana. Lakers get him. Of all the 4 picks, I'm not saying it's not a good fit. But it's one of those where I look at it and go, okay, this is not the perfect fit, if that makes any sense to you, Kevin. Good player, good pick. Not going to go wrong with the pick, but like the Swanigan pick, I think that was a great pick for Portland. For Swanigan, I think it's a good match. Wilson with the Bucks, I think it's a good match. Anunoby with the Raptors, good match. Lakers got a good player. I'm not going to say it's a great match.
Yeah, I think that they wanted to get rid of Mozgov, and because he's not athletic and he's a big plodding guy, and in today's NBA, there's not a huge need for that, and you're getting Thomas Bryant who can run up and down the court. And so I think, you know, years down the road, it could be a good pick and it could work out and he could be the center of the Lakers. But you're getting a raw guy here, and he's a sophomore. There's a reason why he fell to 42. He's a sophomore, as is Anunoby coming off a knee injury, and Anunoby got picked 17th. So there's obviously question marks with Bryant. Has a 7'6" wingspan, and he's huge, and he can be a really good defender, potentially, or he could flame out of the league and just never develop. You know, that's the 42 pick overall. That's typically what you're getting, and it's a loaded draft, and you're getting, again, a big NBA body, and he's got a huge wingspan, and he can become, you know, an all-league defender. if everything goes well for him. I'm not saying it won't, but there's a reason why he fell to 42. And I think the Lakers are really just wanting to get rid of the trash, as they want to basically put it, and get younger and get quicker and get a bunch of shooters around and kind of emulate what Golden State's doing. I think that's what every team is trying to go after. And so it's funny to see all these teams drafting offense and guys who can hit threes, and then Golden State buys a second-round pick, and they pick the guy who can't shoot at all. And all he does is play defense and give you high energy and rebound the ball and can be a good defender at the rim. So it's funny to see the Warriors, who just killed everyone this past year, the past 3 years realistically, for the most part, and they're getting that guy that no one really cares too much about in the NBA. Everyone's looking to be the next Golden State, as opposed to getting that tough, rim-protecting, versatile defender who can't score. So it's just funny to see Bryant to the Lakers. You know, who knows what happens with it. It'll be interesting to see when his initial, I guess, if he makes a second contract with the Lakers, 3-4 years down the line, if he develops and becomes a starting center for the Lakers. He, won't now, but it obviously the Lakers are wanting to go one direction, and, they're not looking for plodding guys like Mozgov who can't get up and down the court. Bryant can, so he's an interesting prospect. That's why he got picked. That's it for the Big Ten prospects. 4 guys got picked, 3 in the lot, or not the lottery, the first round, guaranteed contracts. You got Bryant at 42 to the Lakers. So the Lakers traded for that pick too. They obviously wanted him. It's not as though, they couldn't find a buyer and they just took him for the heck of it. They wanted Bryant. They obviously see the potential there, and I think the potential is there, but it's a lot of untapped potential, as opposed to Wilson at 17. You know what you're getting. Anunoby at 23, as long as he's healthy, you're getting a league defender. Swanigan, you know what you're getting. Guys in the second round, even this year, you don't necessarily know if they're ever going to pan out to anything. But that's every NBA draft. Again, that's all 4 Big Ten guys that got picked. There are 9 more, and I'll just read off the names and their summer league teams and who they, quote unquote, signed to play for the summer league.
In the Dreamer League. They're playing in the Dreamer League.
It's the Gatorade League, Troy. Come on. G League.
No, it's the Dreamer League. It's the I dream big. I'm gonna play a shortened college season in the summer.
Pretty much. So there are 7 seniors of the 9 Big Ten guys that are playing summer. I mean, all these rookies are going to play on the summer league teams, but another 9 guys from the Big Ten got picked up for summer league rosters, and 7 of them are seniors. Malcolm Hill from Illinois, senior. Peter Jock from Iowa, senior. Derek Walton Jr. from Michigan. Zach Irvin from Michigan. Ty Webster from Nebraska. Bronson Koenig from Wisconsin. And Nigel Hayes from Wisconsin. They're all going to be on summer league teams. And the Bucks getting Bronson Koenig, keeping him in Wisconsin. The Bucks getting DJ Wilson, keeping things in the Midwest. Those lovely Bucks of yours, Troy. But so,
they took a Bucky Badger. Can I throw it out? And Badger fans will probably get on me. I'm going to tell you this. Loved Koenig as a Badger, Kevin. I think he did some very good things, helped that program get to some prominence, made a lot of big shots in tournament time, carried that team for a number of games, played some big minutes. It's just, to me, not an NBA player. It's a good, solid college player. He's just not going to make it in the NBA. Now, if he proves me wrong, great. Again, I'm always the first one. I'll admit, hey, I was wrong. But I guess I want to get your thought, Kevin. You're a college basketball, I'll call you this, college basketball nerd. You look at Koenig, very good college basketball player, but even made many mistakes as a senior at Wisconsin. His game, to me, does not translate to the NBA.
No, college basketball nerd, I'll take that as a compliment. I'm absolutely a sports nerd when it comes to, watching everything and anything that I can really get my hands on and going in depth, especially about, pro and college football and basketball. That's just what I live for, basically. But so Koenig at Wisconsin, I'm with you that I don't necessarily think he's ever going to make an NBA roster. Not that he can't step into the league and provide decent minutes as a third point guard. I think he can do that. I think he's a senior. I think he's not as good as Brogdon, obviously. There's a reason why Brogdon got picked, albeit the second round, but there's a reason why he got picked a year ago. This year, it is a loaded class, and so, not every great player, not every player who's going to make it in the NBA, even make a decent difference in the NBA, is going to get picked. I guarantee there's going to be one guy in this draft that didn't get drafted, and he's going to have a really good career. He's going to be kind of like, I guess not necessarily Evan Turner, because going back to Evan Turner, but Evan Turner's making, $16 million a year in Portland. He's obviously done well for himself. I think there's going to be that guy. Isaiah Thomas for the Celtics picked 60th overall. I think in a loaded draft, he may not have been picked 60th. He may have gone undrafted. And now he's, an all-league player, all-star. So I think not necessarily someone undrafted from this year's class is going to be an all-star, but they're going to do really well for themselves. They're going to be a really good starting player somewhere. Will Koenig be that? I don't think so, because partly of athleticism. I just don't think he's a great athletic point guard. I think, like you said, Troy, he makes big shots, and so he has those highlights, and a lot of fans look to highlights, and he gets a lot of publicity, and it's Wisconsin, and you get a bunch of wins, and you look really good doing it. I don't think Koenig is a bad player. I liked him in college, but like you said throughout the season, there's just something missing with Wisconsin. You've got three really good seniors. You've got Hap. It's just like, why, or not three really good seniors, the two seniors, Koenig and Hayes, and then you got Hap, who's going to be in the NBA. He's going to get drafted somewhere eventually. But so Wisconsin all year long, even though they were basically neck and neck with Purdue, tying for first pretty much in the Big Ten regular season anyway, there was always something lacking to you, and I think it was because Hayes didn't play up to his abilities. I think Koenig, he makes all these big shots. He's supposed to be this great senior leading point guard, and yet he doesn't really carry Wisconsin to beat really good teams, and he just didn't do it. I don't think he's a magnificent player. I think he's a good shooter. I think defensively he's going to be a liability. I think athletically he's not going to be great. So, can he orchestrate an offense and hit threes when need to be? Can he be a backup point guard in the league? I think that's what any realistic Wisconsin fan would say about Koenig. But you're going to have your guys that talk about the wins he accumulated and being a starting point guard for however many years and, hitting all these big shots and taking Wisconsin to Final Fours and beating that all-time great Kentucky team a couple of years ago. But when getting to the NBA, it's just a whole different animal. So I'll leave it at that. I don't think he's going to be great. If he makes an NBA roster, I think that's cool, but his ceiling to me is a backup point guard in the league.
Yeah, and so my thought here, Kevin, is backup point guard, Milwaukee Bucks. Thank Milwaukee. Thanks for being in Wisconsin. That's why you're getting a chance. It's not going to be with the Bucks, but they're going to give you a chance to play in the Dreamer League. I actually saw that the Bucks had done that, Kevin, and I'm like, why? Why Koenig? All these players that are out there, you're going to bring him and invite him to play in your Dreamer League? It doesn't make sense to me. So I don't want to get worked up today. I just don't like that the Bucks did that because, again, nothing against Koenig, like you said. I thought he was a very good, very valuable player for Wisconsin. Thank you for allowing Wisconsin to get to NCAA tournaments in your 4 years, get to a Final Four, Big Ten championships. Awesome. Great college player in my mind in Wisconsin. Maybe, people will talk about Wisconsin and say, hey, Koenig and the Badgers. Yeah, but your legacy is college basketball, not the NBA. So I'll let you go on, finish up some of the other names in the Dreamer League from the Big Ten there, Kevin.
Yeah. The other two that I wanted to talk about, I mentioned the 7 seniors. The other 2 Big Ten guys that got picked up for Dreamer League rosters, as Troy loves to put it, James Blackman Jr. from Indiana is a guy we talked about a lot. And if Indiana were to make this magical run in the Big Ten tournament or eventually NCAA tournament, it would be because of Blackman and his athletic abilities. And I called him a future NBA player guaranteed a couple months ago, as the college basketball season was going on, and I still think that. I still think he's going to make a roster somewhere. I think he's going to be playing in the NBA. this upcoming NBA season. I don't think he's going to start. I don't think he's going to get great minutes off the bench, but I think he will be on a bench on an NBA roster this coming NBA season, 2017-18. I believe in James Blackman Jr. My question is he's a junior, and he didn't get picked in the NBA draft. So my question is, well, there's not much of a one-year difference from being a junior in college and a senior in college in terms of NBA scouts looking at your age. He's not young, according to NBA scouts. He's a junior. He's not an 18-year-old kid. I'm not sure how old he is. I don't know if he's 20, 21, whatever the case is. But my point is he's not young now coming out. He's not going to be young a year from now coming out. There's not a huge difference there. So why not come back to college and lead Indiana and be that obvious number one guy for Indiana and shoot 40+% from three and take Indiana somewhere this year that they weren't this past season and do something at Indiana, prove to people that you are that guy, be a senior, be a guy that NBA teams can count on for coming off the bench, come into an NBA draft class that's not completely loaded. I think that's a thing. And Melo Trimble is the last and ninth guy. I think he'll make an NBA roster eventually, but his freshman season at Maryland was his best, and he could have probably been a late first-round pick. It was a question as to whether he was going to be a first-round pick his freshman year coming out, but so he stayed, and he stayed as a sophomore and didn't do great things. He was fine, but didn't do great things, and he never really got better. And now this past season as a junior, Maryland kind of underachieved. I think they were a 6 or 7 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Kind of underachieved, Kevin? Kind of? You could put they kind of, in my words, they pooed the bed. They didn't kind of underachieve. They totally underachieved. I had to interrupt with that because I thought it was very relevant.
Okay, yeah, they underachieved, and they did underachieve. There's no question about it. But the reason why I said kind of was because they somehow got like a 6 or 7 seed, whatever it was. I think they got like a 6 seed. I didn't think they deserved it. I think they played worse than that. Somehow they got like a 6 seed, I want to say, for whatever reason. That's stuck in my mind. But, yes, Maryland underachieved, and especially in the NCAA tournament, they did nothing. So it was supposed to be the Melo Trimble show, and it kind of, points-wise, he led the team. But the second, third, and fourth leading players on Maryland this past year in terms of points were all freshmen. They're all coming back. Melo Trimble could have been that senior, the senior leader, with a bunch of improving freshmen scoring around him. I think Maryland could have been really good this upcoming year. Losing Trimble, losing that leader, that ball handler, that senior point guard, that's going to hurt Maryland. They're still going to be probably as good as they were a year ago because all these freshmen are just going to improve, and they're going to be probably pretty good again. They'll probably be around a 6 seed. But if you're Trimble and you're a junior and you're not getting picked in a loaded NBA draft, why not come back as a senior and be in a less crowded field of intriguing talent and prospects? So I didn't understand that from Blackman. We talked about it with Swanigan last week, that if you're not going to be a first-round pick, why not come back? Maybe it's because what more can he do in college, averaging 18 and 12, being a National Player of the Year candidate? But Blackman and Trimble absolutely had something to prove, and it showed by not being picked in the draft.
I like this Blackman kid. I said it on the show when we first started. He's a guy that can shoot the lights out of it, Kevin. And I agree with you. If he gets the right break, and again, he's in the Dreamer League, and that sucks. And like you said, I wonder who he was talking to, and maybe he had the same agent that Swanigan had. Like, hey, I can get you into the draft. You have to be realistic, and you got to look at where your value is. I know a lot of times it's hard. We all want to think we're great. We all want to think that we're better than we really are. I'll use myself as an example. I think I'm a very good sports talk show host, but not as good as a lot of other people, but I have fun doing it. But I'm realistic about what my liabilities are. And so you look at these kids, and you wonder, for Blackman, it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense. And I'll go back to the Trimble thing. He should have went out after his freshman year. I'm a big believer in go back, play. His stock was the highest it could have been. He had bad advice. He should have went out. Should have went out then. Somebody talked him into coming back. That was a guy. I was surprised he went back, Kevin. I applauded him when he did it because, hey, that's great. You're going to go back. You're going to enjoy college. Great. But honestly, he was the kid at that time, and you look at that Maryland roster, you talk about not having anything to prove. After his freshman year, I don't think Trimble had anything to prove. He probably would have fell into that late first round, and maybe somebody said go back, and then maybe you'll go up, but then he went back. So I don't understand the logic there. But these guys, again, I know you make fun of me calling it the Dreamer League, but that's what it is, Kevin. These guys have dreams of playing in the NBA, and they need the right break. They need something good to happen, and it's so hard to come out of this so-called G League, I'll call it the right league for now. Just so hard. I mean, you get 10-day contracts. You can go play, and if you do well after 10 days, you can get another 10-day. Maybe if you do well when your 10-day options are up, you'll get signed to a contract. But even then, those are not guaranteed. So these guys, they have a long road and not a paved road. Like driving on a Pennsylvania road, Kevin, potholes all over the place, road construction here, detours over there. There is no straight path to the NBA when you play in the Dreamer League. You got to work hard. You got to get a lot of good breaks. You got to make sure you're on your A game all the time. And, you know, for 99% of these guys, it's done. It's over. Enjoy your summer league. Enjoy your time. And maybe next year you can keep playing, or maybe you go to Europe and play or go overseas and play. But, man, your NBA dreams are crushed. Even second-round draft picks, Kevin, are not guaranteed. Those contracts are not guaranteed. If you go into camp and you're not ready to play as a second-rounder, boom, you're done. You know, pack your bags, go home. Maybe you can land in the Dreamer League with the other guys. That's all I got to say. You got me a little worked up. Not totally, but you got me going a little bit.
Yeah, the one last point I wanted to make before we get to our final topic, which we'll get through fairly quickly at least because it's been an hour now. Trimble, I was never a huge fan of Trimble, even his freshman year. Like, yeah, this kid's really impressive and good, but he also got to the free throw line a lot. And to me, that's a good thing. It's obviously efficient, and you want to get to the free throw line a lot. But when your game somewhat depends on it, he can obviously hit threes too, but he's not an unbelievable three-point shooter. He's not going to shoot 40% in the league from three. He's just a good one. You know, he'll shoot high 30s and be, you know, perfectly fine. But to me, his game in college just revolved around getting to the free throw line 9 times and making 8 of them. And it's cool for college. It certainly helps your college team. But if that's kind of your game, is just making sure you get to the rim and get contact, in the NBA, it's a lot more difficult to get contact. There are a lot fewer guys who make their living just getting to the line, and James Harden's one of them. I'm not a huge James Harden guy because I think he just goes in the lane and flops around and hopes to get fouled. I think that's a big part of his offensive game. He doesn't play great defense whatsoever. So I'm personally not a huge James Harden fan. This past year, being a point guard, facilitating, getting other players to actually play better, playing a little harder on defense, I gained more respect for him this past year. Much more respect than I ever had for James Harden. But point being, I think that Trimble, his freshman year, relied on getting to the free throw line, and it was great, and he was this freshman leader, and, you know, so, hey, the sky's the limit. But if that's kind of all your game is based on, then maybe that is your limit. And so I think that's what showed this past season as a junior and 2 years ago as a sophomore. Like you said, Troy, I think that he obviously should have won out. And for most kids, you know, if you think your ceiling is untapped and you think you can get a lot better, obviously you come back, you know, become a lottery pick, you get more money, you're going to be guaranteed. But I don't know who, you know, advised him to come back to college, and that, like I said, for most freshmen who can improve their draft stock, it makes sense, but maybe he had those delusions of thinking he was better than he was, thinking he could get to the line more, thinking I don't know what, but he didn't do it over the past 2 years. Like I said, as a freshman, it was his best season. sophomore, junior years, they were forgettable to me. There were no huge shots. There was no progressing in his game. He's not a better passer now. He's not a better rebounder. He's not a better defender. In my opinion, it's just is what it is. So I think maybe he'll make an NBA roster, but James Blackman, I would put my stock into Blackman more than I would any of these other players in the G League. Or not in the G League, technically in the Summer League. But so we'll see what happens with that. It was interesting seeing the Big Ten and, seeing only 4 guys come out and all sophomores, and, hats off to 3 guys going in the top 26. But we were kind of down on Big Ten basketball this past year, and Bridges next year at Michigan State, could potentially be a top 5 pick if he plays up to it. So in kind of a lower, less crowded draft class, at least that's what quote-unquote experts think. I absolutely don't think it's going to be as loaded as this year's class. But so it'll be, I think, much more than 4 players in the Big Ten get drafted a year from now. With that said, the final Big Ten topic that I wanted to bring up was D'Angelo Russell and Magic Johnson kind of in control of the Lakers. And he came out with a comment about D'Angelo Russell because he spent time at Ohio State, was obviously a sensational player. I thought he was going to be an unbelievable NBA player. He's kind of shown that he's more of a 2-guard than a point guard, and Magic Johnson kind of said it, that he's not really a leader. And so it was interesting when the Lakers traded him and Timothy Mozgov and his horrible contract to Brooklyn. And Brooklyn said, well, we know we're going to be terrible, so we'll eat the contract, but we'll take your young, talented player with it. So Brooklyn doesn't care. The Lakers, Magic Johnson came out and said he thinks D'Angelo Russell is an all-star talent, and I absolutely agree. He also said that he doesn't think Russell is a leader, and he wants someone who makes other people better. And the Lakers at number 2 overall in this year's draft drafted Lonzo Ball, who makes other people better. And he wants to distribute more than score. And he wants to run up and down the court and score 90 points a game like he did at UCLA. So I absolutely think Ball makes other people better. And that's what Magic Johnson did as a player. That's what he wants from a point guard, a long, athletic, not necessarily hugely athletic Lonzo Ball, but a guy that obviously has great size for his position and gets other people involved. Russell is a great scorer. I think he's a 2-guard. I think this is kind of James Harden 2.0, not necessarily in his game, but exactly the fact that he wants to score more than he wants to get other people involved and get other people better. I think Russell Westbrook is naturally a shooting guard, but people call him a point guard because he dominates the ball so much. So he brings the ball up the court. He is viewed as a point guard, but he wants to score more than anything else. And I think that's what D'Angelo Russell is. He's obviously not as athletic as Russell Westbrook, but he's a better shooter for sure. So Russell is a great passer. He just doesn't do it enough. I thought at Ohio State he showed that he was an unbelievable passer. He was the best passer in his draft class. There's a reason why he got picked as high as he did when he immediately came out. But Magic Johnson says he's not a leader. He's got great talent, but he doesn't make other people better. I thought it was interesting. A lot of people said, why is Magic Johnson saying this? And, there's a reason why he traded him away. And I completely agreed with basically everything he said. Wanted to get your thoughts on it, Troy.
Well, one of those things is you got to find people that are going to fit what you want to do. And if Magic Johnson has an idea of what he wants to do, and now I got some noise next to me here in the car, but Magic Johnson has a plan, and I kind of feel sorry for him because he's got to deal with Mr. Ball, not just his draft pick, but he has an idea of what he wants his team to be and what he wants to be able to build a championship team. I mean, Magic Johnson is a champion. He played on teams. He knows what the chemistry has to be. Now, granted, I've said this a million times, it's not old man Troy's NBA anymore. But Magic's been around the game. Magic's seen the game evolve. Magic knows what needs to be done. He's making moves, and if he feels that Russell is not a fit, he's not afraid to make that move. And I think it was a bold move. And I think it was a move that may wake up other players on that team or even wake up players that come to the team. Magic's not going to put up with any crap. Magic wants to win. And so he is going to put together talent to win. So I'm taking all of the talent and putting it aside, Kevin. I'm looking at the psychological move that Magic Johnson just made. He made a move to tell his players and other players that may want to come to L.A., I am building a winner, and if you don't fit in my system, you're not going to be here. I've said this a million times, Kevin, not just on shows, but in passing and talking. Leagues have gotten very weak, and what I mean by that is they're letting players control the league. Not in the sense where they actually can make rules, but look at all the crybabies out there. Look at all the me's out there. You need guys like Magic that played in the old days when teamwork actually meant something. He's trying to bring that back, I think. Now, good luck to him because that's not the culture. It's almost like Magic Johnson is trying to change a culture of the NBA on his own. I like the move. I like the boldness. Like, hey, yeah, you know what? You could be an all-star, but you don't fit what we want to do, so get the hell out. I like it. I really like what he did.
Yeah, I like it as well. Like you said, he doesn't fit the mold that Magic Johnson wants. And I think it's awesome that I don't think the Lakers were necessarily doing much and going anywhere and making an imprint and showing that they had a direction before the last few days, and taking Lonzo Ball and saying, hey, we want a point guard who gets other people involved. And we don't want a Russell Westbrook. We don't want a D'Angelo Russell. I absolutely agree. I think if D'Angelo Russell wants to play point guard, it's a mistake. I think he's a starting two guard, and I think he's a good one, as his career plays out. I think he's a really strong two guard in the NBA. But if he stays as a point guard, I just think it's limited because he wants to score more than pass. And that's the sad part is he can pass with the best of them. He's an unbelievable passer. Just watching him 1 year at Ohio State, you could tell he was an unbelievable passer. So I think the potential is awesome for D'Angelo Russell, but it's as a two guard. And Magic Johnson saw it the same way. He doesn't think he's a leader. The thing that D'Angelo Russell did with Nick Young and, calling him out and, saying, hey, you're sleeping with other women and, you have a girlfriend, I think that lost a lot of respect for Russell in the locker room. I honestly do. I think that's a huge part of saying that he's not a leader. That's the thing.
Why
I mean,
they call him youngster.
I'm a youngster. Come on now, Troy. But
kids will be
he didn't. He didn't like Russell's basically from the neck up. He didn't think he was a leader. He didn't think he made other people better. He thought he was about himself. And so that's what you're getting when you take an 18, 19-year-old kid, top 5 in the NBA draft. That's why people think the NCAA is watered down and college basketball is watered down, because you take all the elite talent out right away and, you don't have recognition with guys staying 2, 3, 4 years. And you take all the elite talent out, and the NBA is getting these literal kids, 18 years old, and putting them on NBA rosters and saying, hey, be the point guard of the Lakers. Well, obviously he wasn't ready for that, and he's not mature enough for that. Maybe 5 years down the road.
Mr. Ball's ready for it, Kevin. Mr. Ball's ready for it. I don't know Lonzo's ready for it, but Mr. Ball's ready for it. Mr. Ball's ready.
Yeah.
I don't know if his youngster's ready, but Mr. Ball's ready for sure.
Yeah. I believe in Lonzo Ball. I think he makes others better. I think the comparisons to a bigger, longer Jason Kidd, I think, are absolutely warranted. I don't think he'll necessarily be a Hall of Famer. He can be. That's up to him, in my opinion. I think the potential is all there. I believe in Lonzo Ball. LeVar Ball, completely different story. I'll leave it at that.
Well, we're going to leave it at that for our listeners. We've been in their ear for a little bit over an hour. You and I, Kevin, always said, we could probably make any show that we do into a 2, 3, 4-hour radio show. So I will toot our own horns. If there's anybody out there associated with radio and you guys want a good talk show, the Youngster and Old Man, we're here. We're ready to listen. We can do a 4-hour morning show just by ourselves. We could take Tiddlywinks and turn it into a 4-hour show. I guarantee it. But with that said, Youngster, always a pleasure to talk to you about Big Ten basketball, Big Ten sports. We will let the listeners go. Thanks for listening in, everybody. For the Youngster, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter, I am Old Man Troy. My Twitter handle, TroyRobert967. We'll talk with you next week. Have a good day, everyone.